Good evening. Turn this down a little bit. Welcome to the Dominance Academy. Hope you're having a good week. You should. If you're a man, you should always be having a good week. A good day, a good month, a good year, because it's wonderful to be born as a man. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, people hearing this track from Pink Panthers and that chord played in the background, dun 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 dun. That's taken from a group called Underworld, and they were in the electronica scene from England back in the early to mid 90s. And so kids today, they'll hear this track and go, holy shit, that's fucking awesome, because it hits. And she lifted it from them, hopefully with permission, but that's why it's so good. It's because she took someone else's original game that was authentic. They created it from scratch. Remove those chords here and it's just some beat with some chick talking over it, with some stupid lines. But anyways, if you listen to my track about what is game, and there's a section in there where I talk about that sort of thing, and people will bite all kinds of shit from other people, especially on YouTube, right? They'll hear something good and they'll say, "Ooh, that sounds good," and they'll bite it and they'll regurgitate it. And in that video, I talk about, it's like someone could take like a shitty song. They're making a shitty song on some Casio keyboard with some stupid beat that's pre-programmed, like a bossa nova beat, the swing beat. They're really shitty, right? And then you take a sample from, say, like James Brown, and you plug that in to that shitty Casio beat, and all of a sudden there's life to it. There's richness, and what you've got going on now sounds pretty damn good. All right. Or like if you were to cook something and then Gordon Ramsay is next to you cooking something, you take 20% of his plate and you put it on your plate and mix it all in. Now your plate has been elevated. Right. And people do this all the time with game. They borrow concepts, they borrow ideas, they borrow sound bites that sound good. And they say, that I'm going to copy that, and it uplifts them. But it's nothing that they created. It was not original. It was not original to their mind. They just regurgitated some shit. And this is part of the trap of being raised in an internet culture, because you have tons and tons of minutes per day exposed to other people's thoughts, and they do too. So it's just a lot of bouncing off the same ideas back and forth, and with very little point of origin. So you got to be careful about how much social media you consume, well, media period, because it can get in the way of original thought. You should be cultivating time alone as a man, where you do not have media distractions. This is part of your internal cultivation. Oh, I wore my daddy shirt today. This shit is fucking awesome. One of my subs got it for me. So I cut the sleeves off and I wear it to the gym. I love watching people read it. They're like, "Who wears a daddy shirt to the gym?" Well, I do. Whoa, shit. So yeah, watch your minds, right? Be very, very careful. Guard your minds, because that's the way in. And you have to be able to protect this, so that you can become sovereign. That is like I guess if there was an end goal to the path of man, it's sovereignty. And to be sovereign is to not have the ideas, philosophies, views, perspectives of others or some other thing to rule over your mind. That's what it is to be sovereign. Okay, you're sovereign up here and in here. Okay, so it's very important that this is protected and cultivated within the self. So shout out to Uncle Guns for posting up my links. Please do check them out. It's to my main website, to my book, How to Be a Dominant Lover, and as well as my consultations. So if anything on this stream inspires you, gets your gears going, and starts making you think about certain things, about how you could do something, or just questions about the self, please do book a call. It's completely free. You get 30 minutes with me to talk about whatever you want to talk about, and perhaps set you on the right path. Kevinism7, I see you there. All right, so I wanted to talk about the stuff that girls keep hidden from men, from society, from themselves, and they do hide it. And this is why your role, I wouldn't say it's like so important to them, but because who cares, but just how influential you can be because they hide so much. And this is it's important to understand. The women that you see is, I don't know, just a fraction of what they actually are. And both with, like, let's just say there's two parts. Let's just make it simple. And let's say there's the good girl and the bad girl. Okay, the chaste, sweet little thing and the slutty whore. Okay, they both reside in her, and you only get to see a shred of either of those. And you think, oh well, I get to see more of say like these good girls out in society. And it's like, no, they're just kind of obeying social standards. It's not really being good. Sorry, I'm just changing the bit rate on my camera, so hopefully I can come back. Add to stage. There we go. Okay, so that's not actually being good. Okay, their goodness can only be seen in private, and so the goodness that you see or that you think you see out in society where she's being good is just a sliver. The bad girl, the naughty girl, what you see either on social media or out in society or even in the bedroom typically is just a tiny bit. It's just this little fraction of what she's actually holding. Okay, I wouldn't say like what she's capable of, because it's not an ability. It's just part of the landscape, her internal landscape, and there's a lot there. There really, really is. And part of that is this whole like degradation, shame, humiliation, begging, this sort of thing. And we know, like, just from literature, we know this from movies, we know this from people talking about it on YouTube. There's the adult industry. There's all sorts of things that point to that girls like this sort of thing. Okay, and the question is why? Okay, why is this part of the deal? And you really can't get to a good understanding of the why until you let go of judgment, right? So if you're holding on to judgment, you'll never get to fully see or understand what it is inside a woman that causes her to desire these feelings. Because to us, we might look at it as strange. We might look at it as a waste of time. We might look at it as, just a complete confusion. Like, why would somebody want to beg for something and enjoy the begging? Why would someone want to be humiliated and enjoy the humiliation? It baffles us. And because that sort of stuff, it goes in direct conflict with leadership. It goes in direct conflict with being grounded, being stable, being reliable. All right. And so, that's where our misunderstanding comes from. And then other guys, well, actually a lot of guys, they will take it a step further and they'll judge it. And a lot of times we tend to fear the things that we do not understand. And when there's fear, it's easier to shame instead of run away, right? Because running away makes you look like a pussy. So um, then the next best thing is to shame it and say that's fucked up. That woman's fucked up because she wants to beg on her hands and knees. That's fucked up that she wants to be humiliated. And you'll never come to an understanding if you don't make your judgments blank. If you don't come at it with just an open mind and just plain pure objectivity. And a sense of wonder, okay, curiosity of why does this happen? So most men think that women want respect, kindness, and equality most of the time. But what they don't know is that inside them, and this can often be seen behind closed doors, but not always can be seen outside of closed doors, with open doors, women crave the opposite. They crave shame, they crave humiliation, and even the desperate need to beg. Not because they're broken. And this is what other women will do, okay? Because it's oftentimes they like the sisterhood or like the I don't know, there's another phrase for it, of like the collective of women. They like to band together on a lot of concepts, okay? And so you'll see that, like, you'll rarely see a woman throw another woman under the bus. It's pretty rare. They'll usually just get behind some girl and support whatever sort of thing she's talking about. So, but in the cases of where it looks bad or it could look bad, such as, women talking about submission, right? I've seen this online. I follow some accounts on IG where these women are very much proud of being submissive to their husbands and following his every single word and putting his needs, happiness, and desires in front of hers and basically just being there to serve. And these women get flamed by other women, all right? But it's not just because it contrasts with an ideology. It's because it rubs a certain something that's innate. Okay. Remember, the woman, they embody void. Okay. They literally have an open cavity inside their torso. All right. That's meant to be filled. That's the whole point of a uterus, is to be filled. All right. It's not meant to just be empty space indefinitely. That's not what it was designed for. It was designed to carry and cultivate life. So there's fluidity to openness. Okay, things bend, shape. It's meant to morph and shape into things, right? Into other things that are solid, i.e., submission to dominance, fluid to a container. Right? I've talked about this before on a previous stream. Excuse me just a second. I left my back door open and I think they're getting a lot of noise. Hold on. Okay, so they'll shame other women, right? They'll shame women who are exposing something that's inside them that either doesn't feel good or might make them look bad. Okay. But trust and believe, the vast majority of women who enjoy shame, humiliation, and begging are not broken. They're not broken people. Because the fact of the matter is that there's broken women everywhere, in every sector, in every group, in every lifestyle, in every clique, every section of society. There's going to be some broken women. And yes, they will show up in the kink community. Okay. But that's just the nature of things. Okay. You're going to have some people who are really messed up. Okay. And that's just what happens. But just because someone likes this sort of thing, because it resonates with them, does not automatically mean that they are broken. But because these experiences, they're not, so they enjoy this not because they're broken, but because these experiences unlock a part of their desire that polite society never really talks about. So we're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you why women crave the thrill of humiliation and the ecstasy of begging, and why only a man who leads with strength and groundedness and care can give it to her. Okay, because, and I say care because it's not enough to use force. Okay, it's what's better than that is to use power. Okay, and power and force are two different things that often get confused. Power can take many different forms. Force has only one form. And so power can nurture, power can destroy, power can support, power can grow, power can inspire. There's so many things that power can do. And so when it comes to something like begging, humiliation, degradation, it's important to come at this with power. And you'll understand why the care is an extremely important part. Okay. So why does she want you to humiliate her? Okay. Or why do some women enjoy humiliation? Out in the world, she'll say, I want a man who respects me. And that's not a lie. Okay. That's not really a lie. I think that most women do want some element of respect. Okay. And she means it publicly. Okay. But in the dark, when she puts her guard down, what thrills her is the exact opposite. She doesn't fantasize. Okay. Let's go into women's fantasies here. Women do not fantasize about being politely complimented. She doesn't fantasize about being respected. Just know this. Now, this doesn't mean that women want to live a life of disrespect, but they're certainly not fantasizing about a gentleman. They absolutely are not. She fantasizes about being used, exposed, stripped of her dignity. And this is a very difficult thing for a girl to talk about, because it's not only flies in the face of conventional beliefs of how a woman should behave, but it flies in the face of her own self-concept. Because while she might be very cognizant of these fantasies, she still has however many years of social conditioning of this is what's proper behavior to accept. This is what's proper behavior of you. To suggest that you should be crawling on the ground, begging for something from a man is deplorable. It's utter disrespect. How could you disrespect yourself like that? And so these messages are in there. Remember, when I talk about like what goes on in women's heads, they don't have like a singular voice the way a lot of men do. They have multiple voices coming from various parts of society, and they're schooling various parental figures, other family members, pastors, some fucking commercial that had some kind of impact on her, movies, who knows, right? But there's tons of voices in there. All right. And they're all sort of competing for the mic, which is partially why they are kind of unsettled, which means that you being a container is that much more important. You cannot be similar. It's very important that you're not similar. Do not think, speak, or behave like a woman ever. Ever. And, if that gets your panties in a bunch because you feel like you need to share your emotions, well, it's going to blow up in your face. So, but don't say I didn't warn you. So, there is a you. I mean, it's not like anybody can do this, right? Not anyone can bring this out of her so that she feels comfortable. It's not possible. It requires a certain kind of man that that makes her feel this way. Okay. Remember, none of this is rational. None of this is thought out. It's all based around how she feels. Okay. And it's sort of paradoxical, okay, because they'll roll their eyes when like men beg for them. And there's so many guys who beg for women. So many. But they melt when they're the ones doing the begging. And with girls who kind of like push back on that idea, I could say, okay, let's just play some, thought experiments. Let's use your imagination. Now, imagine a man on his knees begging for sex. Literally on his knees, begging, pleading, maybe with tears welling up in his eyes. And now picture a woman on her knees begging for sex with tears welling up in her eyes. And I say, which one do you think is generally sexier? And if she's not a dominant, right, which is fairly uncommon amongst women, she'll say, well, yeah, sure, it's pretty embarrassing to think of the guy begging. And while guys may not literally do this on their knees, they do this in spirit. They do this in character. They do this in behavior. And they think that it's not because, well, they've been programmed by society in order to behave a certain way that's fair and equitable and nice. And so when that is your framework, all the behaviors that stem from that are essentially begging, right? Begging and seeking for validation to say, okay, you are good enough. You little boy, you're good enough. Here's a pat on the head. I'll give you a kiss. I'll give you a date. I'll give you pussy, right? So, why do women like this? Because begging flips her internal script, right? So like in daily life, she's in control. She, chooses her clothes. She chooses her words. She manages everything that goes on with her as she presents into the world. Okay. But in sex, and this of course can extend beyond the bedroom, but let's just keep it at sex for now. In sex, the deepest thrill comes from losing the control that she's had to have, right? Because we're not in the time period anymore when women are completely taken care of by men. Okay. They fought for their rights, and this is where we are. All right. This old comedian from the 60s and 70s, his name was Gallagher. He actually had an identical twin brother. Crazy dude. And his whole shtick was like smashing watermelons on stage with a giant wooden sledgehammer, like a cartoon type sledgehammer. And the people in the front row would just get sprayed with watermelon. It was like part of his whole thing. But he was like very clever about like talking about society and things like that. Not not too harsh or anything like that. He was always very lighthearted. And he said this one joke. He said, you ladies, you stood up for your rights and then you lost your seat. And so now no one's going to be like, hey, here, take a seat, you fair maiden. Right? It's like, nah, you wanted to stand, you're fucking standing right next to us, man, shoulder to shoulder. Enjoy it. And so they have to have that going on like all the time. So when there's the opportunity with the right kind of man that can allow her to drop control, which of course requires trust, um, then she can let go. And so when a man slows her down and, you know, and denies her release, so it's like building up the arousal, but then slowing down the achievement or the escalation of that arousal to the point of climax. He denies her release or touches her everywhere, but like, all over her body, but like doesn't touch her pussy. Okay. Just everywhere, kisses her everywhere, but on the lips. Okay. Or but on the neck or on the nipples, like, you know, whatever erogenous zone. And, um, sorry, I just had to mute my phone. Um, Yeah, so he's one that, the right kind of guy, or there's that trust, and she can kind of melt into his container. That's where he can then control that because now she's sort of embodying her desire. Okay. So when a woman really lets herself feel sexy and really get aroused, it's not like I'm this person who's becoming aroused. It's that she becomes arousal. She embodies arousal, becomes just a direct expression of it. And, so, where he's leading her, like wherever she craves, he's not being cruel. Okay. He's leading her further into surrender. And that surrender feels like electricity. Okay. It really, really wakes her up. And this is why, like, I'm a huge proponent of the whole concept of edging. Okay. And you can edge with pleasure, surely. Okay. There's a lot of people who know about like how to edge a woman. You bring her close to orgasm and then you back off. You bring her close to orgasm and you back off. Like that's edging. But you can do edging with many things, right? As long as the desire is there, you're basically just playing cat and mouse, but with her pussy. So you can have that same sort of stuff, the cat and mouse, that tease and denial, that can be done with physically with her body. It can be done with her imagination. It can be done with words. It can be done with anything that she desires. And like I said, many times in the past, when someone has expressed their desire and you have either control over that thing or you have that thing that's desired, you now have leverage. And with that leverage, you can determine how high it goes, right? You pull down the lever, the thing goes up. You let go of the lever, it goes down. So you become in full control when someone releases their desire. Now, as a man, the best way that you can go about doing this, like the very beginning steps, is to release your addiction to pussy. Release your addiction to sexual pleasure. I'm not saying give up sexual pleasure. I'm saying release your addiction to it. And trust and believe your addiction is not physical. It's deeply emotional. It's something that's connected far back in the past, likely stemming into your childhood, okay, or rooting into your childhood, not stemming into it, but rooting into your childhood, where you learn to seek and fulfill this desire to be validated. So if you get the thing from the girl, that means you're good enough. And that's a very, very murky trap that tons and tons of guys are in. And you can be in it even if you're regularly getting pussy from random women. Right? You're just good. Like I've said before, you're just good at procuring your own drug addiction. That doesn't mean you're good. You know what I'm saying? It just means you're good at getting drugs. So, back to this, like slowing down, when the woman begs, she's not being weak. Okay. What this is that it's proof, right? It's proof of how safe she is, how free she feels. And it sends signals. It sends signals that she can let go of her pride. And that is the biggest thing, right? Because the longer you stay in the outside world, engaging with the world and doing and creating and managing and all this stuff, this increases the density of the ego and of pride. And so when the woman is with a particular kind of man who understands these workings, which can be developed by first like letting go of the addiction to pussy and the addiction for validation, so that he can think clearly, speak clearly, and act clearly. It's not modified by these ailments, these illnesses. That's when he can start infecting her with him. And this is what allows her pride and her ego to become thinner. It becomes less dense and it becomes permeable. You can start to permeate and penetrate through her ego and her pride, which makes her feel small. And then you can really guide that smallness once it becomes softer. Okay, because pride and ego is stiff. The thinness makes it softer, more pliable. And this is where you can start making it even softer through begging. And really, you have to have like I want to say like an attitude of not giving a shit, but it's not exactly that. It's like caring without caring, if that makes any sense. Because it's not complete dismissal, right? It's not saying like, I don't care, and just like brush her off your shoulder, like she's a piece of lint, okay? But she certainly doesn't have the same kind of sway over you anymore, just like her presence alone. It doesn't change how you behave. And this is how you can then start really leaning into making her beg, leaning into the humiliation, leaning into the degradation. And I was talking to a client about this tonight. You have to have the confidence and the calm conviction, because if you don't, there's going to be part of you that says like, "Ooh, I don't know if I should do this. I'm really uncertain if I should say these things or do these things because, gosh, I'm really afraid that, I might offend her or she might not like it. And then that means she doesn't like me. And then that's like a whole huge mess. So I don't want that. So I'm going to like tread lightly. Okay. And like, I'm just going to like pat her like this. And she's going to look at him going, what a fucking pussy. He's scared of me. He's scared of himself. And then, like, just her pussy turns into a raisin. Just dried up raisin. And what's worse is that's what happens to the pussy in her mind. Because what you've just done is you've injected doubt. You took a nice 1cc syringe, and plushed it in there, and just injected a full cc of doubt right into her mind. And now you're not that guy. You can't be. It's infected now with doubt. So guys, they make a lot of mistakes. They make a lot of mistakes regarding this stuff. Where was I here? They never really attempt to make women beg. And it's because they're often taking that position. Like I said before, they're too busy taking up that position of begging. They're begging for sex, they're begging for attention, they're begging for validation, they're begging for love. And they're begging her to stick around. And even when they're not doing any of these things, and say, she's doing her thing during the day and he's doing his thing during the day, he's still begging. Like, for example, checking to see if she's watched his Instagram stories. That's begging. That's a needy, hungry behavior. And then if she doesn't, oh no, right? There's that pang of anxiety. I wonder what happened. Okay? Begging. And what they don't realize a lot of times is that them taking up that space for the woman, because there's only one place, there's only one chair that says beggar on it. Okay? Is that, he's in that seat and he doesn't realize that this is killing her desire. Like you could take, any attractive, highly desirable celebrity, right? Male, and change his behavior to a groveling simp. And immediately he will become disgusting to women. Absolutely disgusting. And then the guy, just like an average guy who's next to him, who's got total grounded, focused, hard as fucking, granite type confidence and belief and love in himself. It makes that celebrity pale in comparison, simply by behavior alone. So just know that if you're begging in, any number of ways, okay, because there's tons of ways that, that guys beg. I explained the one part about, liking Instagram stories and, checking to see if she's noticed yours and all that bullshit. Okay. So, you're begging. She's going to be uninspired to beg herself. So that's why women often say that sex feels better with men who are less emotionally needy. Not because they don't want love or connection, but because neediness collapses sexual polarity. Like I said, in her fantasies, she's never fantasizing about rowboats and roses and, classical music and romance, like how it's depicted in the movies. She's never fantasizing about that. She's fantasizing about fucking being taken in the woods by a goddamn werewolf, shredding her clothes, right? Like that's what she's fantasizing about, being taken, like taken out of this, like a compulsion with a desire so strong. It's a compulsion that he must take her in a beastly way. And that's what's making her wet. Not taking consideration, oh, is this okay? Could you imagine the werewolf doing that? Snarling and then stops immediately and he goes, wait, is it okay if I touch you here? Can I have your consent to pull your hair? Like, boom, polarity is fucking done. It's cooked. It's totally fucking cooked. Now, women, like I said, they do want love and connection, but because of the neediness collapsing the polarity, it just fucks everything. So a man who doesn't beg for sex, but instead knows how to create irresistible tension, makes her body respond in ways that she can't fake. Because no person can bring themselves to losing control. It has to be done for them. You can't have one hand on the wheel while also having no hands on the wheel. Like it's just one or the other. So either someone has to harness your mind or you take a bunch of drugs. Like those are the ways that you can lose control. So you can't do it yourself. Okay. So, what does humiliation, what humiliation really looks like? It's not cruelty for the sake of cruelty. And this is where a lot of doms get caught up, right? Because there's ego involved sometimes. And this can be really problematic, because many people do bring their egos into these things. All right. And um and that's where problems can happen. Okay. uh if someone's level of sadism is too high and they just want to be cruel for the sake of being cruel, uh this is this is no good. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, good girl. So um so it's not cruelty for the sake of cruelty. All right, it's erotic degradation. So, simple examples is making her crawl, making her say embarrassing things, denying her clothing, denying her underwear, exposing her need, right? That's really big. Okay. But degradation can take on like tons of different iterations. Okay. And what makes it most powerful is really understanding the woman of what touches her. Okay. So it's kind of like that bullshit with the love languages. Okay. Just bear with me for a moment. They say, like, let's say someone is, their love language, so to speak, is gift giving. Okay. Like, we're receiving gifts. They love receiving gifts. They love giving gifts. Gifts. And you decide to give them quality time. It's not like they're going to be unhappy with the quality time, but it doesn't hit them. It doesn't hit them emotionally, because what hits them emotionally is giving and receiving gifts. So if you really want to tap into their emotions, you do the giving and receiving of gifts. So the same thing applies with rewards, punishments, and humiliation. Okay. And humiliation doesn't necessarily have to be a punishment. It can just be done for fun or for the creation of a scene or what have you. It doesn't necessarily have to be linked with corrective measures trying to change a behavior, although it can. It's just, they're not inextricably linked. So you can have fun with degradation and humiliation. But what makes it impactful is figuring out what really pushes her buttons, what really has an emotional soft spot. And this can come about through conversation. It can come about through direct questioning. It can come about organically, just kind of picking up on things, or just experimentation. And you find it just by trying out different things. You, there she is. There's the girl, right? And it's great fun once you find out, whichever method is used. Um, but there's a whole host, and then students of mine, they know they've got access to. I've got 190 plus examples of how to degrade and how to humiliate, and there's many different ways, right? So there's ways that you can degrade and humiliate through physical means, right, that are non-sexual. There's time, right? There's taking away certain things. There's um like restricting access to certain things. uh, there's sexual humiliation. Um there's emotional humiliation. There's verbal humiliation. There's so many different types of degradation that you can access. But like I said, what makes it really impactful is finding the thing that really gets under her skin, that really touches that button. Okay. Like, one, say, for example, um, she, you find out like something about dogs, like being treated like an animal, like an owned animal. And you want to humiliate her. Maybe it's for a punishment, maybe it's just for fun. So you cook dinner, and it's dinner time, and you make her take her clothes off, and you put your plate down on the table, and you take her plate, and without silverware, and you place it on the floor, and you say bon appetit, and you sit there at a table with silverware and a glass, and she gets her food in a plate or a bowl on the floor, and maybe another bowl with like water in it or whatever, some kind of beverage. And she cannot use her hands. She must eat like a dog. Now, that sounds like great fun to some people, all right? And to the right woman, that will be the right kind of string to pluck to vibrate that juicy need to feel humiliated. To another girl, that would do nothing. Just like kind of like laugh it off, like this is, I don't know, just like whatever. I'm just eating food off the floor, like big deal, you know? And that's just the the fun of this is discovering these things. Okay. Making her say embarrassing things, right? A lot of times women, and this is more universal, but a lot of times like women don't freely talk about graphic sexual things with men. And this goes with the programming thing, not wanting to be judged, not want to be seen in a certain way, blah, blah, blah. Right. They might be a little more free with their girlfriends. And it may not still get quite as graphic, but you can make her say things or have her repeat certain things that you say. And this is again, to cultivate that humiliation. So you could say, repeat after me, I love sucking your dick. I love being covered in cum. I love eating your cum. I love being used like a toy. And making her just say these phrases. And the fun part is the psychology behind it. Okay, it's not the actual outcome, because check this out. It's a fun little architecture thing there when she's following the command to say these things. Because following the command relieves some of the burden of saying the humiliating phrase, because she's just, doing her job, so to speak, right? She's just following orders. It's not really a statement that she believes and is saying of her own volition. She's saying it because she was told to say it, right? So this sort of thing alleviates her from some of the guilt, but not all of the guilt, from some of the shame, but not all of the shame, right? So it kind of like turns the shame and the guilt and the humiliation into like a bite-sized chunk. That's not too overwhelming. Whereas if she really just let herself say these things on her own without any kind of direction or command, that might be too intense to release that of her, because she might feel too whorish, right? And that's okay. Like, I actually kind of enjoy the that architecture where my added command adds like another layer of complexity to what's happening psychologically. I like it. So the whole reasoning behind this stuff, okay, is lowering her ego or thinning it out, like I mentioned. Okay. So the more you can kind of massage that embarrassment, massage the shame, massage the guilt, massage the humiliation and the degradation, it starts to thin out her ego. And at the same time, it heightens her desire. So what you can do is, as you're arousing her, you can increase, like on say like a 1-to-1 ratio, increase the degradation and the embarrassment. So the embarrassment increases, the arousal increases, and you keep going up, 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 up. Okay. All the while teasing her, making her beg, right? You start incorporating all of these things. You see how they kind of work so nicely together, increasing her arousal with like just edging her mind. And now you're edging her with your voice. So you're edging with her body, say like with a vibrator or with your hand or what have you, anything can be done. And she's getting closer, more aroused, wetter. She's squirming. Maybe she's tied up. She's like spread eagled on the bed with her arms and legs spread, cuffs or rope or, Velcro straps, whatever you want. And she's just spread and exposed. And you're not fucking her, all right? But you're continuously arousing her, making her say certain things, right? That are embarrassing, right? And you're feeling her pussy. Oh, it looks like somebody wants to get fucked, right? And she's gushing wet, right? Your pussy is so fucking wet. What a mess you're making of my bed. You should be ashamed of yourself. Such a fucking messy whore. And then making her say this, right? Tell me you need to get fucked. No? Oh, okay, I'll just stop. And you can just get up and start moving, right? After she's at like a level 8 out of 10 in arousal, she'll not want you to stop. You're like, what? What? No, no, please come back. And so you go back in, say it, right? But don't touch her yet, right? Your hand's like very close. She's about to touch me again, right? With a vibrator or a hand or whatever. And you say it. Say it. And you're like, no, I'm not good enough. I think we're done here. No. Say it with conviction. Convince me, right? So you're like encouraging her emotions to come into it, right? And then once you're satisfied, then go in, right? And then you go back in. She's getting more aroused, playing with her more. And say, now say it again, right? And whatever that is, I'm a cum hungry whore. I'm nothing but a cock sleeve. I'm a useless bimbo. Like anything you want, okay? It doesn't really matter. And just and as the arousal is going, you're going harder and harder, getting closer and closer to orgasm, and then backing off to say it again. Say it again. And so you're driving this, okay? This just increases everything, right? And now kind of like having her admit that she wants to get fucked, and you making her say it, admit that she wants to get fucked, make her beg for it. I'm not convinced. I think we're done here. I don't think you want to get fucked enough. I think you just want to lie here, a dripping mess on my bed for the rest of the night. And she's like, no, I want to get right. And so you get her to beg for me. Okay. And then you can continue to tease her. So then make the begging more and more and more intense. And depending on, say, like your level of sadism, you can bring it higher and higher and higher, maybe to like the point where she's crying to get fucked. Okay. Because you've succeeded in making her ego and her pride so thin you can see through it like fucking, tracing paper. So that's up to you. Whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to go that deep or that hard. Okay. But just know that you can always turn the dial. I tell this to my clients all the time. You can always turn the dial a couple notches in practically any situation. Right? You just need some creativity and a lack of fear, right? You have to let go of your fear. Let go of the fear of making a mistake and the fear of something working and then going, fuck, what do I do with this now? Just let it all go. So, what's behind the psychology of shame, right? Shame is taboo, society saying like, never feel this, never want this, right? You have to be proper. Girls are supposed to be like this. Women are supposed to be like this, like blah, 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 right? And that's why it's erotic. The thing that's held away from, conventional, the society that we all face with our nice faces, right? It's like, I'm sitting there on like New York City subway, tons of girls. And I'm like, the vast majority of you girls love to have cum sprayed on your face. Just love it. Like when it comes from the right guy in the right moment and all that stuff, just absolutely loves it. Loves having her hair pulled, loves being slapped, loves being put on her knees, loves being made to say degrading and embarrassing things. Okay, maybe not all of them, but I'm just saying like there's like a general thing. Of course, there's some variables in there that some girls are just, not really into that, or, but by and large, generally, there's just this desire. And all up front, they're like all proper and shit, reading a little fucking book, right? Gotta look proper, right? No, there's no sluts over here. No, there's no sluts. We are professionals, right? I'm not saying they can't be professionals, like fine, whatever. Okay. But I'm saying is that underneath that, that perception of everything's sweet and nice, and proper, there's some absolute fucking filth. And I say that with all the love in my heart, but it's absolute filth. So just know this. And so like with this stark contrast, that's why this sort of stuff is so erotic to women, because it's not accepted by society. It feels like eating forbidden fruit. It's thrilling, it's dirty, and these things can be highly addictive. And so I like my communications with my girls, there's regular degrading stuff. And sometimes it can be very light and playful. Okay. Um, and other times it can be very harsh. It can be delivered like just a firm punch with no glove whatsoever. And the reason why that can be done with ease whenever I want, like any fucking time whatsoever, and not have a resisting, pushing back, surprise, shocked, whatever sort of reaction, is because it's what I was mentioning before with the care. There is a very high level of trust that my container is greater than anything that happens inside it. So what's happening inside it is that the degradation, the humiliation, the embarrassment, right? And because the container is stronger, they can then trust that whatever I say, it's done from a place of like not cruel just to be cruel. That it's cruel to have fun. It's cruel to make her feel small, but in her feeling small and thinner and lighter and more vulnerable, that this isn't just destroyed or taken advantage of or maimed, right? It's then molded and shaped and put into a direction, right? Or just put in my pocket for safekeeping at a later time. There's just a complete sense of control and trust in that control. Okay. So just it's important. Okay. So let's look at like the process of begging. Okay. Begging is there's an art form to it, you know. There's an art form to begging. So the first thing is the slow build. Okay. Begging has a time slip. Okay. It's not rushed. You cannot rush begging. Like the entire concept around it is staving off. That's the whole nature of begging, is staving off something that's desired. So if they get it quickly, even if they beg for it, it's like, did they really beg? You know, like the dog sitting there, you're eating your steak dinner, and it comes over, does that once, you go, okay, here, have a piece of steak. You know, like they didn't beg very long. Like they didn't drop into that emotion very deeply, right? It's just this little skip into it, and you're like, all right, here you go. And I get it, you know, sometimes that can be annoying, and so you just want to just let them have the steak, and then whatever. But if you want to drive that with a woman, you have to stretch time, which means, well, not means, but it's beneficial, like I said, to have control over your lust. Do not have lust control you. Because while lust and the desire to come controls you, then you will rush things. And it kills the mystique. Now, of course, every now and then it's totally fine to have just quick, rough, passionate sex where it's just in and out. And the girls, sometimes they love it too. They love that feeling of just being quickly used. And then he moves on to something else, right? It's just like, whoa, wow, right? And that's what they're left with. Like, what the fuck was that? Like just a freight train, and boom, it's done. Occasionally they like that. But generally speaking, what's more powerful, okay? That would be like force, but what's power is not rushing. Okay. Most males, they rush because they want to get to the points. They want to get to dick in vagina or dick in mouth or dick in ass and then just start pumping away so that they can feel good. Okay. Or they can feel accomplished. So their subconscious can feel validated. Okay. So they touch too fast, they kiss too fast, they penetrate too fast. Like they they don't they don't realize that there's the vastness of a woman's body and understanding that it's deeply connected to her emotions, to her sex, to her psychology, to her perceptions and her senses. Like all of these things can be managed, manipulated, coerced, you know, tantalized, teased, encouraged, like all of these things in different areas or all at once. Like it's really up to you. But the whole idea is to stretch time. And so really you need to slow down, right? And not only does that increase her arousal, but it says to her without saying, I'm the one in control here. My dick is not in control. You're not in control. I'm in control. I decide the pace. I decide where, when, how fast, how much, how intense, or if at all. Like one of my favorite things, this happened about a couple of years ago, I think. Um, 3 years ago. And this girl, she came, she was like, kind of like a regular booty call, but it was like once a month. Okay, so not that regular, but once a month I could count on her calling and be like, hey, I want to get fucked. Probably during the time when she was ovulating. And so she gets in touch with me. She was at some bar or whatever, not too far from here. And she's like, can I come over? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So she comes over and I wanted to play. I was feeling that friskiness, that urge to torture, right? I get in that mood sometimes. And so I did, I have this like strap under my bed where it's just like, it's this harness system. You can find them at Amazon, but they go underneath your bed. And then like these like straps kind of come out, like 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom for wrists and ankles. And so she was all spread out. And, she was already, horny, turned on like prior to that due to, like foreplay and shit like that. And so I extended the foreplay. Okay. So it gets extended to increase tension. That was the whole point. I wanted to increase tension so much that it was just going to drive her insane. And so I proceeded to play with her. I have, one of my favorite toys, vibrator, and it's just getting higher and higher and higher. Okay. And then I said, I'm kind of bored. And I turned off the vibrator and I fucking left the bedroom. And so she's in there like tied up. Okay. She cannot get out. And with total shock on her face. And I left the room and I went to sit on the couch in the living room and I just waited. I just waited in silence. And I wanted to hear what stages she was going through. Okay. So that arousal like turned into like, haha, funny, very funny. And then that turned into like frustration, right? That turned into fear. That turned into anger. That turned into even greater desire, right? To this, like a strong annoyance. And then after I was sensing that she was getting to like a fever pitch, then I came back in and then made her beg, right? Through her anger, through her frustration, because she wasn't done yet. She was still wet. She was still turned on. She's just really fucking frustrated, confused, and whatever. And so I utilized that to then fucking like, you ever see those like balloon launchers? You ever see those that requires 3 people? Like, and like 2 guys on either side, they hold the cord and then the one person like pulls it back and they sit on the ground and then they launch that fucking thing. Like her pleasure was like launching a fucking balloon, a balloon slingshot. Okay. A balloon launcher. That's what it was like by the time I got back to her. Because all those feelings that got stirred up then got channeled into her arousal. And boy, did she come. Right? Because it's just what I wanted to create in the moment. It was just purely a creative exercise. That's it. Okay. So I say this to illustrate like how you have to be able to be okay with stretching time, with increasing that tension. And like, you can't do that if your dick is like really excited to get inside, right? It's not going to work. Because like, for the most part, like when guys come, they get a quick shot of oh Jesus, is it prolactin or progesterone? I think some hormone that starts with P. And what's funny is that it tanks our testosterone, right? Just for like a few moments. And this is why after a guy comes, generally speaking, he can be like, let's see what's going on with the game. And he'll like go up, make himself a sandwich, get a drink, sit down, as if the sex didn't even fucking happen. And the irony is that women, when they have an orgasm, the same exact chemical is released in their brain, but this causes them to want to snuggle. If I was a believer, I would say God's got jokes. So after the slow build is the tease. Okay. So you touch everywhere but the spots, right? You avoid her clit. You avoid her neck, her nipples, whatever erogenous zones that you're familiar with. Okay. But you go near it. Okay. You tease the areas. All right. And like, make her body chase your hands. Like, she'll want to like push up, maybe hover your hand right over her pussy, right over her clit, and like trace your hands around it. She'll want to like push up with her body to try to make her pussy touch your hand, right? And then of course at that time, if like you're into, setting things straight, checking punishment, that sort of stuff, like that, then is like a time for like a little smack on the pussy, right? And he said, did I tell you you could do that? Did you have permission to touch my hand? Right? And now you've driven and you shifted, now added a new emotional element. Okay. But that's like a whole other thing. All right. But the whole point is to tease. Okay. It's not being cruel. It's about building her desire to consume, her appetite. So it's like, yeah, you're just staving off like someone's really fucking hungry, and you're like, here, have a crumb, have a bite, and they really want to just stuff themselves. You're like, nope. You get one pea. So, and then when you finally get to touching her, in her erogenous zones, it's going to be 10 times stronger. Okay. Then the next stage is denial. All right. So, you guys know about denial, right? It's just like bringing her close and then backing off, getting her like she's like just about to shake and come. And then you just like slowly back off from that. Okay. And, it's interesting. Okay. So the more you deny, right, she'll like that, like the story that I told you about, it increases other emotions, right? It can increase frustration. She might protest. She might complain. She might whine. She might curse you out. She'll plead. She'll beg. Okay. And it's like, when you get her to the position of, like genuinely begging, then that's when you've created a shift. You've created a real emotional shift in her. She's no longer performing. Okay. And that's the idea, because the performer is the one that is, they're cognizant of how they look. All right. Like, I can't stand fucking a girl and she's fixing herself, like fixing her hair and things like that. Or if there's like a mirror, like she's like checking herself out. Like that just makes me want to like mess up her hair, spit in her face, smear her makeup with it, and keep going. Right? And you're like, there. How you gonna fix that? Okay. Like be here. I can't stand that shit, right? Of like preening oneself because it's just insecurity. It's like they're really just wanting to like make sure they look cute and sexy the entire time. The fact of the matter is that sex isn't cute, right? Sex isn't sexy. It's raw. It's it's nasty. I mean, we can dress it up with like some sensuality and romance and things like that. But at the end of the day, when it comes towards like climax, we're just animals, right? We're just animals, just like smashing our bodies together to get to a certain point. Okay. So I don't know. I just can't stand that shit. But, when their begging is real, all that performance, pardon me, all that performance is let go. So denial, it heightens everything and it turns the release into desperation. The next one is the command. So begging really feels more erotic when she feels like she's being led. So the whole thing is you leading her emotions, leading her arousal. Okay. And it's not like giving commands and barking orders and things like that. It means like giving her direction with certainty. Right. When I was talking about conviction, you don't doubt that injection of doubt is not there. It's just pure conviction. So when you say like don't move or sit still or kneel, right? Or open your legs, open your mouth. It's said with um, uh, very simple certainty. You don't want any kind of doubt, no stammering, no asking questions. It's just very clear and concise English or whatever language you speak. So really it's about creating a presence, right? Or verbally expressing your presence. So that's kind of how you should think about your commands. It's not about like forcing or coercing a woman to do something with your voice. The voice is an extension. The voice is an extension of your presence. All right. And basically, it's just saying to her without saying that you're in control and she can let go. Okay. Something to keep in mind is that routine kills begging. So if she knows exactly what you're going to do, she's never going to lose composure. And you want her to lose composure. She wants to lose composure. Okay. So, and this is what happens with a lot of guys. It happens with a lot of guys in relationships. Sorry, excuse me. So it happens with a lot of guys in relationships, and they tend to do the same things over and over and over. Right? Start kissing, squeeze your tit, lay her down, spread her legs, fuck a few times, and then and then it's done. And like, sure, maybe the first few times that happened, it was like, oh, great, wow. But after like the 16th, 17th, 18th, 43rd, like after a while, that shit really loses its spark, its interest. Okay. So routine kills begging. Right. So keep her on her toes. You change rhythm, change positions mid movement. Stop having sex and do something else. And I don't mean like play Scrabble. I mean like bend over and start spanking her, right? Without your dick inside her. All right. Like, yeah, you spank her while you're fucking. Why can't you spank her without your dick inside her? Like you're fucking her, pull out and just keep her bent over, push her face down to the side of the bed and just start spanking her. All right. Now, of course, like you should learn how to properly spank, just haul off, but you get the idea. Slow down when she expects speed, speed up when she expects you to go slow. In my book, I talk about a lot of these things where you're mixing and shifting around different intents and things like that. Okay. And when you mix them, pardon me, geez, it's been a long day. Um, when you mix them, it kind of like shifts her footing underneath her. Okay. And it destabilizes where she stands and how she sees you. So the begging, right? It's not just like words being used. Okay. It's a psychological and emotional state that she gets in. All right. So when she does start begging and having that verbal expression, it's because she's reached a point of being overwhelmed. Her mind is overwhelmed. Her senses are overwhelmed. Her nerve endings are overwhelmed. Her pussy's overwhelmed. Uh, just her craving is overwhelmed. Like she can't contain herself anymore. Okay, she's losing control, and that loss of control is what really brings about the begging. And it's not anything that she can plan for. It just kind of happens. And because of it just happening, like outside of her control, okay, that's how it becomes addictive, right? Because it really, I mean, all the layers, the taboo stuff, the giving up control, the being able to just release and let go of like all the pretense that she carries around with her day after day after day for the majority of every day. All of that just kind of wrapped together, plus the emotional part of you like edging her mind and her heart and her body and all this stuff, and then twisting it and shifting it around, it becomes a highly addictive drug. Highly addictive. And not only because of the psychological and emotional shifts at it, like at the case, but also because it's rare. Like, how many guys do you think? Uh-oh. Excuse me. Yes. All right. So where were we? Okay. So yeah, the overwhelming, right? That's what we're talking about. So, and the addiction aspect of it. And part of the reason why is because it's just super rare. Like guys are not doing this. They're like the vast majority of guys are not producing this strong of an emotional impact on a girl. It's just not happening. Not happening. And so, and what that is really essentially is you're providing freedom. Like freedom from the self, like freedom from uh like having to posture all day long, freedom from all of the thoughts that go on in her head throughout the day, freedom from personal doubt, freedom from insecurities, responsibilities, like to uphold all of these things, these images and concepts and beliefs, and how she sounds and how she does this and how she does that. All of that can be let go. And this is why it's so powerful. It's like how many guys do this, right? Who've talked about this, who understand it? Probably very, very little. And that's why it's coveted. That's why it's rare. And that's why it's powerful. And that's why they find themselves reading erotic novels and romance novels, erotica, all that good stuff, right? There's a reason why it's a multi-million-dollar industry every year. Lots of stuff produced and lots of it consumed. So the pleasure that's had, okay, it's not remembered, like the pleasure itself, okay. They're not like remembering like every single time they had sex, right? But they remember the moments when the desire broke their pride. It's an emotional memory, not a physical one. Okay, it's not like this pleasure based, like, oh my gosh, that that scenario was great. Maybe they remember the scenario, but mostly because of not what happened sexually or physically, all right, or verbally, but what happened emotionally, and how that either like shattered or thinned the pride, how it disrupted the ego, right? And being made to say certain things or inspired to say certain things that really kind of shifted, it created an emotional shift. And it's those types of emotional shifts are very, very rare. They're extremely rare. And this is what's remembered. Okay. And those moments, right? You want to talk about, like, if you're one of those guys like, oh, pair bonding, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This is what really creates the bond. Okay. And no, not every Chad Thundercock does this. All right. Having that ability, that mental fortitude and skill to be able to get into a woman's mind and break through pride and ego, to access her core, to cause her to open up and become vulnerable and expose herself to you on an emotional and psychological level. Okay. Like, fuck her body. Like, that's always going to follow. But the emotional and psychological, and then guide it and weave it and shape it and make it do this and make it do that, that's rare. Every Chad Thundercock and every Tyrone is not doing this. I mean, for many guys, like, he is in their head, right? Because a lot of those kind of guys, they fantasize about other men that they think are better than them, which is really fucking weird. But they're not. Trust me, they're not. Like, the vast majority of women who are having sex are not experiencing this type of reality. This type of reality of themselves. They're not. So when they do, those moments are etched into her mind, etched into her emotions, and etched into her body. And the man who gave her those experiences becomes unforgettable because of its emotional impact. So that's why women talk about men from their past, not because of like size or stamina, technique, or anything like that, or how he looked, okay? But because of how she was made to feel, right? And the deeper the guy makes her feel, which, really kind of like smashes that pride and thins out the ego, that's when it becomes even more impactful. That guy stands out. Now, the irony is that the guy who does this likely doesn't care that he stands out, because it doesn't need to. And this is comes about when she loses control. She lets go of her identity. Like, in those moments, she surrenders. She no longer becomes this person who's having an experience. She is the experience. She becomes part of it. So certainly take that into consideration. So I was talking about care. All right, this is important. So there's a balance and this is it's weird because like girls really get uh I don't know, engaged, turned on, aroused, or what have you, with contrasting elements. Okay. So it's like brutality and care. So, without brutality, and you just have care, it's just flat, right? These are nice guys. You know what I'm saying? And brutality without care is damaging. This is like the like the bad boy who just like fucks her and then just like leaves her on the side of the road. like that doesn't work. I mean, you should at least just drive slowly so she can walk next to the car. Um, so the art is in your control, right? Cut her pride and then catch her when she falls. So it's so much like, sure, like if you have the ability to like smash someone's pride, that's pretty powerful. But it's even more powerful when you smash their pride and then catch them before they hit the ground and go splat. Because now they're without pride, which means they're vulnerable, and now they're in your possession. They're in your hands now. So it's really important so that you understand that this duality, this destroy and nurture, this is what makes it addicting, right? This is what's really powerful for girls is this mixture, right? And it's just important that you try to experiment with these things. And I talk about it in my book, How to Be a Dominant Lover. So if you want to get better at this sort of stuff, there's plenty of inspiration and how-tos and understanding in that book. So follow the link that Uncle Guns has put up and get yourself a copy. You will not be disappointed. So, but yeah, you've got to understand like how to balance certain like energies, if you want to call it that, right? So just know that like if you're trying to be cruel with or sadistic, right? So like sadism without care or without awareness becomes trauma. And being nice, say like during humiliation or prior to humiliation, it kills the polarity. So this has to, you really have to pay attention to these things, and and make sure that you're creating a strong balance. It's really, really important. All right. So let me just see here. I will lose my place. Yeah, mistakes, went over that. Oh, and this is an interesting part. So sometimes things will get old. All right. Like say playing around in the bedroom, you try this, you try that. And it seems, like the mind adapts. That's part of the thing about humans is that we just adapt to our surroundings, to our experiences. You do anything enough times, you just kind of get used to it. And the thing is about humiliation and degradation and begging is that it doesn't get old. That's the interesting thing about it. And the reason why it doesn't get old, say like spanking. Okay, so like just for example, like let's say every Tuesday and Thursday at the same exact time, you pulled out your your riding crop and you gave her the exact same amount of wax in the same place at the same time every Tuesday and every Thursday. Like at first it would be exciting. And then as the weeks went on, the excitement would go down, 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 down until maybe the both of you just lose interest. And that's just the way things work. Humans adapt. But humiliation, embarrassment, and degradation, these things are tied to the ego. And the ego never goes away. You can make it thin, but you can't ever get rid of it, right? It's woven into our consciousness. You cannot exist as a person without an ego. So as long as the ego is there, shame and embarrassment and degradation, humiliation can always be accessed, because its pain point, that, or the thing that's defending the pain point or guarding it, is always there. So as long as she has an ego, she will crave its destruction, especially if she gets a taste of it. If she gets a taste of the freedom from having her pride destroyed. So no matter how many times she submits, humiliation feels fresh, because the ego always regenerates. Always. So this is why it's important to keep it in check. This is why it's important to constantly check your woman on things that are based around your standards, your rules, your principles. Like I get kind of, I can get a little bit pedantic with things, and it depends on the girl, really. But if I don't like the grammar, I will correct the grammar. If I think there's a missing comma, then I'll correct that. If the tone isn't right, I will correct that. There's a lot of things that, like, a lot of guys just overlook. And I'm not saying you have to be like me. And I'm certainly not like this with every girl. It's just this one girl, it kind of brings that out in me. I don't really know how to explain it. But you just kind of have to, like, really bet more on yourself. And sure, she's completely invested. She's completely living within my paradigm. So because of that, and because she's seeking my approval, and because she gets my approval from time to time, that when I just poke at her pride, or chip at it, or straight up smack it across the room, it becomes this great sense of arousal. And I'm not talking like just emotional arousal. I'm talking, panty soaking arousal. Real physiological response. And you can train this in, just like Pavlov. How do you do that? Well, let's say you're talking to her on the phone, and you start to bring in embarrassing sort of words, okay? And let's just say something simple like, "I need your cock," right? And you're having some flirty conversation. You say, "Tell it to me." Say it. "I need your cock." Say it again. "I need your cock." Are you alone right now? "Oh, you are? Good. Take off your panties and sit on the edge of the bed." Good. Good girl. Now, rub that pussy and say it again. Right? So now you got her rubbing her pussy, saying degrading things. I need your cock, right? "I need to be used." Say it. Keep rubbing that pussy. "I need to be used by you. I need to be used by you." And you can push it even further. "I'm not fulfilled unless you're using me." Keep rubbing that pussy. Rub it harder. Finger yourself. Lick your fingers. Clean them. Say it again. And you can keep pushing. Like I said, you can always turn the dial a couple notches. Always. Always. It's just, where's your imagination going? Okay. And so if you guys want to learn how to cultivate your imagination and how to push these things, just off the top of your head, get in touch. Okay. It's an integral thing that you must know in order to lead a woman's mind. You have to have creativity and be really fucking comfortable with it. So if you keep this up, right, now you're turning humiliation into something that is arousing. And then after a while, you say, All right, now you're just going to take off your panties. You're just going to sit on the edge of the bed, and you don't do this like in a pattern. You have to have an irregular pattern, right? Having her basically exposing herself randomly while she's on the phone with you, or video, or what have you, or even in person, right? It doesn't matter really. And then you start removing the rubbing. Okay, so let's say you have her start rubbing at first, and you say, "Stop rubbing. Sit on your hands, or put your hands behind your back," and say it again. Right. So now you're removing the physical stimuli, and in the hopes that it'll take hold, that the words themselves combined with the emotions will then cause the physiological response of her pussy getting wetter, right? And wetter and wetter and wetter, right? Until the point where she's getting extremely aroused, okay? And now maybe you step in and start playing with her pussy and say it, right? And then you bring her to orgasm. Right at the point where she comes, you say, "Come for me." And no, your command is not making her come, but that then becomes the beginning of her being able to come on command, and not being able to come unless you command. So you continue playing with her pussy, and you start over some time. This takes weeks, where you're connecting her orgasm with your command of "come now," right? Or "come for me now," or whatever it is. All right. Um, yeah, whatever sort of thing. If you wanted to make it degrading, like "come for me, slut," but you have to the same all the time, the same phrase. So just know that. And then you can start taking out your stimulation as well. And now you can now bring to the point where your the embarrassment and the degradation is now extremely arousing, and now it can produce orgasms just by you telling her to. And this absolutely works. Okay, actually, do you know what I should do? I should, because I get enough of people telling me that that's not possible. I will take some recordings, and I'm going to put it in my library for my students so they can see it at work. See that she's got nothing inside her, no remotes or anything like that, and me telling her to come, and she fucking comes like that. And I can do it again, like back to back. Come again. Come, you fucking slut. Come again. You're going to not stop coming until I say stop. Go. Do not stop coming until I say stop. And she'll just go boom, 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 boom. Like starting to get lightheaded and shit, fluttering off. And before losing consciousness, I say stop. I think that's what I should do. Just record it so at least my students can see, like, oh shit, like that's really fucking real. It absolutely is. And that's just one tiny aspect. Surely it's super fun, okay? But that's just one tiny aspect to show you the 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 curiosity, the interest, the power of the mind, and being able to create with it, like as a canvas. The things you can do when you've got conviction, confidence, and creativity. Conviction, confidence, creativity. And that's pretty good. It's catchy. And then you can start weaving these things however you want. But it's just to know that you have a tremendous amount of influence. You can. It's just a matter of trusting yourself. Putting all the chips in the middle of the table on you, right? It's weird because all of this stuff that I talked about with the degradation and the humiliation, the begging, and they're all interlinked, okay? They can be. It starts with you, right? This game has nothing to do with women. The women is just the place where you can express it. And the more confident and creative you are, the more fun you can have in expressing it. That's the funny part. So it really just comes down to you, because if you have self-doubt, if you have self-loathing, if you have insecurities, if you really don't like yourself, if you don't have much respect for yourself, you'll never be able to express this type of control, clarity, and creativity. So if that's a desire of yours, you have work to do, right? If you have issues with confidence and, self-image and all that stuff, self-belief, self-respect. And you'd be surprised because so many guys think they do have self-respect, and then you look at them, how they operate around women. And it's like, you aren't. You are lowly. You're a lowly peon who's addicted to pussy. You cannot be controlled by a pretty face or by a woman's holes and do this at the same time. Because that desire is going to modify, it's going to alter, it's going to augment your thinking, your words, and your actions. So yeah, you could implement some of this stuff that I was talking about, but it's not going to be pure. It's going to be modified. So it's almost like you're doing it for the sake of fucking, which just ruins it. Like it ruins the whole fucking thing. And once she picks up on that, she's not going to be as free. That's the irony. But yeah, girls love this shit. I haven't been with hundreds of girls, but hang on, before I make a statement, let me think. I mean, surely in my earlier years, there were girls who I would say weren't into that stuff. But I guess since the years of me coming into myself and being settled and really embracing who I am and what I am, I've not come across a girl who does not like some form of begging and humiliation. Not one. They all like it in some form or fashion. And that's kind of the fun of it is discovering what they do like, right? What really, again, like the love languages, what really pushes their buttons. So some girls, they will lose their fucking mind, in a good way, by spitting in their face, by spitting in their hair. They absolutely fucking love it. Other girls, it's it just doesn't do anything. Fine, cool, whatever. But it doesn't create an emotional impact. It doesn't twang the string inside them that makes them go, oh, what the fuck? Okay. So it's kind of finding that stuff, and there's joy in that. But again, you can't be free yourself. You're in your own prison of lust and the desire to come. And these things are like shackles around your creative wrists. I can dream up shit all day long if I felt like it. I've got tons and tons and tons of scenes written. I don't know how many scenes I've written just on the fly while talking to my girls. And then all it does is just percolates up in their brain. And then they get all fucking horny in the middle of the day. And you go, all right, have a great day. I'll talk to you later. And they're like, what? And oh, so you're feeling horny, right? Yeah, I bet you are. Well, if you want to push that any further, there's only one way you're going to do it. And they're like, well, what's that? I said, well, you're going to go into the bathroom at your work and you're going to rub that pussy. And you hold the camera very close so I can hear how fucking sopping wet you are. And then you're going to send it to me. Right? So there's this embarrassment, this exposure, but she gets to touch herself. After you've gotten in her head and start, scraping things away and pushing around and molding and pushing, you've created this thing in her mind now. And she wants to taste more of it, just have some kind of pressure release from the ache that you've just made, just with your words and creating a picture in her mind. And you're like, okay, well, you can do this now. Squeeze your legs. Start shifting your hips around in your seat. Maybe nobody will notice, but I'll know you're squeezing that little clit. Just to take the edge off the aching. And then you'll leave them that way. Have a nice day. I'll talk to you later. Tease and denial, right? So there's a lot of ways where you can play with this stuff. Okay. So just really, guys, really try to work on your own ego and being afraid of looking bad, sounding bad, being judged, being criticized. Like, fuck all that shit. Okay. Probably gained this from being in like an art school or something like that, because you can't become a good artist until you learn how to take criticism. And so, you'll have assignments and stuff, and everybody will put their artwork up for, one at a time. And the professor and the other students just tear it to fucking shreds. Tear it to shreds. And then you do this week after week after week, because you have to learn to not look at your work emotionally. You have to learn to not look at your artwork emotionally, but look at it objectively. I say, why, what's missing to make this good? It's not my feelings about it, not my attachments to it. It's what can I do to make this actually good? And that's the same sort of shit. Like when it becomes, like this learning, this man shit, and the creative side of these things, okay? The sexual creative side of these things. Like if your ego is standing in the way and your pride is standing in the way, doesn't want to feel discomfort, then you're never going to be that fucking artist. You're never going to be artist to be able to just pull scenes like a movie director out of your mind and just concoct them in someone else's brain. Like without a second thought about it, just with complete ease and enjoyment. You're not going to be able to do that if, you're worried about how you look, if you've got fear and insecurity and all that bullshit. Okay. So I really encourage you guys to work through that stuff. And if you have difficulty understanding how, well, then just get in touch and we'll talk about that, about just thinning out your own ego. All right. Because true leadership, true guidance, okay, true influence, true domination in its most ideal form is actually very, very subtle and a lot more like being like a Buddhist monk, okay, just without all the religious pomp. And the funny part is that at the highest levels of submission and surrender, she too is like a Buddhist monk, because the things that get in the way of fully embodying these roles is your ego. But it's like once you're there, you're not really caring that you're there anymore. You just are. It's a weird thing. All right, I'll answer this question here, and then I think I'm going to pull this to a close. Would you say that players aren't really well equipped to apply what you're talking about because they're motivated by coochie? Yes, absolutely. You're not able to do anything if you're motivated by coochie. Pussy, right? It means the things that you're doing are not pure. You're motivated by pussy, a little fucking wet hole with zero intelligence. You're like, I gotta get me some of that. I gotta do it. I gotta do it. Tie off that rubber band around your arm. You fucking junkies. Your junkies itching your neck. Oh, let me get some more pussy. What was that? I think it was like a Damon Wayans sketch where he plays like this crackhead and he's always like scratching his neck, looking for another hit. Oh my God, you guys are funny. So, okay. I think I've covered enough. I mean, I could go on and on about degradation and the deeper psychological aspects of begging and humiliation. But we're going to have to say that for another time because I want to do something else. So Thank you guys for coming through here on the live. Thank you for watching on the replays. I appreciate you all. And please send in your questions at Justin at thedominanceacademy.com. And please go to the website, thedominanceacademy.com. Check out what I've got going on there. If you have any questions about anything that I have on my website, do get in touch, or go to the link for the free consultation, and you get 30 minutes with me to discuss anything you like. All right. Until next time, we'll see you again.